All right, so the recording started. I'm going to shut the mics off in just a minute. So as you guys know, this is Dual Tournaments 102, and we're going to run through running Dual Tournament, kind of a more complex tournament with multiple charts. This event we're going to again use printed bout sheets, and we'll, I think next week actually start, or maybe the week after, our electronic bouts courses. So we're going to focus on how to run electronic bouts for those of you that are interested and would like more information on that. So we're going to kind of cover quickly and review the basics of what we did in Dual Tournaments 101, and then get into the more detailed items and anything that's new to this course we'll go into depth in. So right now, unless there's questions right off the bat, I'm going to shut those mics down. Again, use that chat if you need something, and as soon as we're done, I'll open it back up and we can chat, and or we can talk then, and I'll stay on as long as you guys want. So at this point, I'm going to. Oh, go ahead.
Will we be able to access this video that you're recording afterwards if we want to go look back at the courts?
Yep, that's correct. So when we get done, it takes a while for the video to render, but typically I've been having those up kind of like 9, 10 o'clock the next morning, and I'll actually send you an email with a link to that. Otherwise, you can get to it from our Track Wrestling page too, from our home site. So, yep, that's a good question. We'll be our. We'll go ahead.
Will you leave them up throughout the season?
We will. Yep.
Our tournament's in January, and we would probably want to pull back and refresh right at the beginning of January.
Absolutely. Yep. Those will be posted on our YouTube channel, and so we'll have those linked right through the Track Wrestling University part there for you. Nope, that's a good question. Okay, guys, I'm going to shut the mics down and we'll get started. All right, so hopefully everybody can hear. If not, feel free to chat me and let me know. And I did start the recording, so those of you know that you're going to be recorded. And as we archive these, anything you ask will kind of be on there too. So at this point, we're working here in Dual Tournaments 102. Of course, you've ordered the tournament and we're logged in. The to-do list is going to be pretty much the same as it was in our other course. It's just a few subtle differences and some more complex bracketing that we're going to work with tonight, and then point out some of the other features that we didn't get to in the other course. So you want to make sure, as I always talk about in these, we plan your computers, make sure you know what printers you're using. You'll also will have probably imported some settings in the setup menu, so you'll come here and use the import function. I will go through that again just because it's probably an important one, and it'll speed up the process of setting up this tournament. And at this point, and where we're going to kind of pick up in this one, you will have also gone through in the setup menu in your settings, you would have gone through and made sure everything was okay there. So of course we covered that in the other course. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that tonight. If there's questions on that, certainly we can go through that later. And then the next step in our to-do list is our deadlines. And I do want to touch just kind of briefly again on this. There are 2 deadlines here in dual tournaments. The first one is going to be this release deadlines to or release lineups to public, and of course that's just what it says. It's kind of up to you to decide when the general public sees lineups and things like that. The next one, lockout statisticians. I just want to touch on that. Statisticians are those team representatives, and they're usually coaches that are going to come in and enter their rosters. This actually eliminates most of the data entry for you, so you don't have to type in all the wrestlers. But this lockout statistician date is going to be the last time that teams will be able to make changes to their own lineup. Anything after this lockout date, you're going to have to do as the tournament administrator. So we'd encourage you to use those statisticians. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it as this course goes on. But if you do have questions about statisticians, it is something that sometimes people misunderstand and don't set up correctly, so be sure to let us know. And all you do, of course, is click on the calendar, and you can adjust that, or you can change the time in the AM or PM. And then I'd come in and I'd set up my teams. And so I'm actually going to be importing most of the teams, but adding teams in dual tournaments is pretty simple. Just click Add Teams, and you'll add your team here. I'm going to use this calendar team that I work with in the testing quite a bit, and put my abbreviation in. And if I had a team website, I could put it there, but I just go ahead and add the team. That's really simple. You guys know how to do that, but what I'm going to do is import the teams later. So, and in a lot of cases, you'll be able to do that if it's a tournament that you've run in the past. And so adding charts, we're kind of to that part of the process. You will note that you want to make sure that you have your teams in before you add your charts, and there's some kind of hierarchical reasons for that, but just make sure you have your teams in there. You certainly want those in in before you build your charts, or at least start creating them. And all tournaments in the dual tournament have at least one chart. And the truth is, most tournaments are only going to have one chart. But there are those more complex situations, maybe bigger tournaments, multi-day events and things like that, where you might need more than one chart. And in those cases, we're going to do what we do tonight. We're going to add multiple charts, and we're going to set up how those teams move from one chart to the next. And so my basic layout, and I'm just going to show you a document here. So this is kind of the basic layout, and this is just a Word document. But my tournament's going to have 24 teams, and I'm going to put them into 4 pools. Each pool will have 6 teams, and it's going to be a round robin, and of course then it'd be 5 duels each. And I'm going to name them red, blue, white, and green. And so I show you this document partly because it's going to help with you understanding what we're doing tonight, but it's also a really good idea. Most of you know how your tournaments are going to run. If it's a new event, maybe you're kind of creating something, but you've done it in the past. A document like this, or at least some good notes to make sure you know exactly what you're looking to do and what you're hoping to accomplish, is a good idea. So basically 24 teams and 4 pools. We're going round robin there, and then their placement in the pools, if you look right here, that's going to determine which line bracket they're going to be placed on. So in this case, maybe this is day 1. They're getting 5 duels on the first day, or whatever the case might be. And then the placement's going to determine where they go on this 4-team line bracket. So then they're going to get 2 more duels to determine that. And then the champions from each pool are going to wrestle for 1st through 4th in a 4-team line bracket. Second placers are going to wrestle for 5th through 8th, and so on. And if you're 6th place in your pool, then you're going to get placed in the pool with the other 6th placers, and you're going to wrestle for 21st through 24th. So in my event, everybody's getting, they're all going to get their 7 duels. They're going to get 5 here plus 2 more. Again, multi-day event. So that's kind of the outline, the basics, just so you kind of know where we're headed with our tournament here. And so all I'm going to do then is I'm going to add charts, and there's an add chart button here, and I found that from the teams page. So if I'm not there, I can go to the teams page in any one of our menus, and I just click add chart. And then if you remember, one of my charts was the red chart, so I'm just going to call it red. And I click OK, and now you notice that my red chart gets added up here. And then I would also put, my green, white, blue, I think I said there. But then as another example, then I could, I would add all of these, and maybe I would put my championship. And then that one gets added as well. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of charts here. I'm going to actually import these as well. But you would just continue to click this add chart. Just add all of the charts. And again, that's why it's really important to have your plan in place ahead of time and to know, kind of what yours is going to look like. So now I have these 2, and we're going to end up with a lot more than these. But for the sake of our demo here tonight, I'm going to select a bracket type for each of these 2 charts. So all of my colored pools are going to use the same bracket type. That's going to be that 6-team round robin. And then, of course, my go back to this. So these are all going to be that 6-team round robin, and these are going to be the 4-team line bracket. So if I click on, if I go to here and I go to setup and then bracket types, and I click the red pool, my red pool, if I go to my drop down, I'm going to use my 6-team round robin. And I guess I will point this out, that the reason that I say that most tournaments only have one chart is because we do have quite a few options here. And all of these scrambles, if you see scramble there, that's going to be a combination of pools or round robins, whatever you want to call them, and like line brackets. So be sure to check here before you get adding too many charts, because you might be able to find it and do it just on one chart. And if that's the case, definitely an easier route to go. But if you do need to add multiple charts, we definitely can accommodate that. So I'm going to pick the 6-team round robin for that. Of course, I could view the sample by clicking here, and open that up. But what I want to do then is, in this bracket type, I'm going to go to my championship bracket. And then for that one, I'm going to pick this 4-team place 4, which is right here. And I just click on it, And just to show you what that one looks like, pretty simple. But after they come out of the round robins, if this is my championship bracket, like it is, my first placers are going to be placed here. If you win your first one, then you got a chance to wrestle for first, and then of course if you lose your first one here, you'll wrestle for third. So that's the basic setup of the tournament here. Next step I want to do is add my weight classes. You will notice, as I always do, I'm working right down through the to-do list. So I will remind all of you that that's there, and sticking to that order is always a good idea. So I'm just going to setup and weight classes, click add weight class, and then add my weight classes that way. So I'll add 106 and hit add, and then of course continue on down. So really simple. You guys know how to do that too, but that's the next step. The one other thing you want to take a peek at too is if I come over into my setup menu, I want to look at my rounds page, and we'll look at this a little bit later too. But if I, for instance, look at my red chart, this will just show the rounds of that. If I look at my championship, it'll show the rounds there. Of course, there's the semis and then the placement. So always a good idea to just kind of have an idea, you know, what the rounds look like in your tournament. It's pretty rare that you're going to have to make any adjustments in a dual tournament to the rounds pages, but always good to know that it's there. I would also add statisticians at this point. We covered this in the other class, but if I go to setup and users and statisticians, again, these are these team representatives, usually coaches that are going to come and enter. And all I really need to do, if I had all of my teams, which of course I only have one in here now, but I would come in here and I would add team statisticians, click OK, and then for every team that I have, it's going to generate these, you know, this username and password. And then I would just come here and send the notification email. And then coaches would get an email with instructions on how to get their rosters in. So not going to go through any of that, of course, but at this point, I'm kind of going backwards, a little bit out of order, but I'm going to import now. So I did want to start with kind of a blank tournament there for you to kind of see. But so I'm going to come into my setup menu and go to import settings. And then I'm going to pick my tournament. And the tournament I'm going to use is going to be Northern. And I just type part of it so I can search for it. And there's that Northern Exposure tournament. That's right there. That's the one that I want from 2012. And then I'm going to pick the teams, and the statisticians will come with it. I also want to pick the charts because this is kind of all, you know, pre-set up ahead. Again, I'm maybe in this case simulating that I ran the tournament last year. I'm going to use the bracket types, the brackets and prelims. I'm not running any prelims, but and then also the weight classes, so I don't have to type those in. So I'm just picking those 4 items. Select the red text saying I know what I'm doing and click import. Type import, and then everything will come through. So just to show you kind of quickly, of course, the weight classes are going to be here. If I go to teams, that's really the, you know, kind of the one big things I wanted here. It's a 24-team tournament, and rather than me going through typing every one of these all came through. And then also the brackets are up here. You'll notice the bracket types came through. And that's set up kind of just the way that I explained earlier in my document. So the one other thing you can do, I just want to show you this just as maybe a point. If you go in the setup menu, there's this item called charts. And what this charts is, it's kind of a roadmap of what you've got going on. So if you ever aren't sure how to get to something in a dual tournament, this charts page is a good idea because I can actually click on any of these little radio buttons and it'll take me to, for instance, if I want to see what the bracket type of my second bracket was, I could just click on that. It's going to take me right to that page. So if I come back to charts, again, think of this as kind of your roadmap. The other item too, and some people have questions about this, the chart order, that's really just how these links, if I go to teams, I think we see it here, yeah, it's how these links show up in what order they are here. So let's say that you added your charts kind of in a different order than when you want, or that you wanted to see them on this, you could go and adjust it there. So if I click charts there, and let's say that I want to put my championship bracket last, which I don't, but I could just pick that 5 and I can make that like a 20. It's just, doesn't matter what the numbers are, but if I change that now, the championship bracket, if I come back to teams, it's going to show up way over here on the right. So to me, that's not really how I want that to go. That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just going to put this back. I think it was 5, but if I put 1, it's going to be the first in the order. and now it runs like that. So that's kind of a quick question out there. So I did have a chat question. Maybe you guys are seeing that too. Actually, I'm not sure if you do or not, but the question was, when email goes out to statisticians, is the content already there, or do we have to give instructions? That's a good question. That gets covered in some other classes, so I kind of whipped over it tonight. But the email that goes out does contain a link that will log them right into their team in your tournament, so then they go right to their roster if you're linked to a season. It does have instructions. It also shows the windows of time that you created in your deadlines. So it's going to give all that information. So nope, it's not something you need to create. You should be able to just go ahead and send that out, and they have what they need. So good question, and I like I said, kind of whipped over that, so I apologize for missing that part of it. The next item that we want to take a look at is the seed map. So if I come into my bracket types, and I'm just going to, let's say I want to look at my championship bracket. So my seed map, you'll notice this page has a few items here, but if I look at the Edit Seed Map button, again, most of you probably won't need to make changes here, but I'll show you how you can. So again, this is my 4-team place 4. Of course, I could view my sample, but I'm going to click Edit Seed Map, and this shows you where they land. Actually, maybe it's best to show the sample as well. I'm just going to open that, and then I think, I might not be able to see it all here on the screen, but I'll do what I can. If I edit the seed map and I look at that and bring this guy back open. So this says right here that my my 1 seed is going to the top of bout 1. So of course that's going to be here. And again, this is really simple for, on small brackets. If there's a bigger bracket, it might be a little, come in more handy. Then on the bottom of 1 is going to be my 4 seed. So of course 1 and 4 are going to wrestle in the first round, and then as we work down, 3 and then 2 at the bottom. So again, straightforward, pretty simple stuff. But if I wanted to, for whatever reason, make a change, let's say I wanted to flip my 3 and 4, all I would need to do is, and I'm going to get rid of this now, all I would need to do is click on this here, and I could update these. So if I wanted to switch, let's say I wanted this to be 3 and this to be 4, I could do that. I could save this map, and then now when I place teams on this bracket, it's going to go 1 and 3 in the first round and 4 and 2. Note that this is just for the championship bracket. So if you have a lot of brackets and you need to make changes, you will need to make those on all of your brackets. So I'm going to switch this back just so they're all the same. To me, that didn't make sense, but again, just so you know that seed map is there. So if you have those questions, like, oh, the teams aren't landing in the bracket where I want them, we do it differently. Seed map is oftentimes a good place for you to take a look. That being said, it's not that common, but it's there if you need it. The other item that you probably noticed here is the flow map. So if I go back, and I'll actually go back from the start, it's in bracket types. So in my setup menu, I go to bracket types, and then I click on, let's use, I'm going to do the blue chart first. So I'm going to click on there, and I'm just going to open that. So the other button that you see here is the Edit Flow Map. And what a flow map is basically a way that you're going to automatically move a team from one chart to another chart once the first chart is complete. And then I said another chat there. I'm sorry, the sample got too small. I think you're probably referring to the sample bracket. Are you guys seeing, if somebody could just chat in, are you seeing this screen okay now, everybody? So the screen that we're on, that still looks okay? All right. So I think the chat was referring to, I think it was referring to that sample. That probably was a pretty small one. If there's a question specifically on that, if that was a piece that kind of kept you from understanding that part of the process, then we'll definitely go back to it. So I think for now, though, we'll just kind of keep moving. But back to flow map. So again, as I was saying, a flow map, if you remember the overall scheme of our tournament, we have these 4 pools, and we're going to wrestle those pools out, and we're going to place our teams in the pools. Then the champions are going to go on to the championship bracket. So we're going to get the champion of the blue, red, green, and white. They're all going to fall into this bracket. The runners-up in these round robins are going to go to the second bracket, and so on. So what we want to do is we want to set up kind of a scheme or a flow map that's going to move these teams automatically. So once the blue chart is done, we're going to move those teams onto the appropriate bracket there. So again, I think, so Kyle, it sounds like, is having trouble with the screen. So it sounds like everybody else is okay there, Kyle. If you can work on that again, if there's something that you miss, I'd be happy to either go through it after we're done, or even, you know, tomorrow we can regroup and touch base again. So I apologize for that, Kyle, but if you can enlarge your screen and, you know, continue with us, that would be great. So flow map. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to work on my blue bracket, and I'm going to click Edit Flow Map. And this one is actually, this one came in. I'm going to actually delete this bracket out. So I'm going to go to the Teams page. I just want to show you that flow map is already there because I imported it. So again, if you import from last year, you're gonna, that's a good good example of how the flow map gets imported to. So I'm just going to click on blue, and I'm going to come here to delete this chart. And as you guys know by now, I can't type and talk at the same time. So when there's a long thing to type, I have to stop talking. But so then what I'm going to do is, again, showing you again, if I come to Teams, and I'm going to add a chart, and I'm going to add the blue one back. And the reason I'm doing this again is just for this testing, or this, you know, this purpose for us tonight, because the flow map was already there. So I'm going to go to bracket types, and I'm going to pick my blue bracket, and this is a bit of like review or maybe even redundancy, but, and I'm going to go to the 6-team round robin, and that gets updated. So, okay, so now I'm back to where we should have been. If I go to flow map now, you'll notice that there's nothing here. And this is what yours will look like the first time you add a chart. If you imported, you clearly saw there that the flow map would be there. But I'm just going to add my entries for the flow map. And again, I'm sending my first placers to the championship chart, second placers to the second chart, and so on. So the blue place, if I look at my first place, so the blue place, whoever gets first in my blue chart is going to go to the championship chart. And in my example, I'm going to say they're going to be the top seed. So they're going to go to the one, they're going to be the 1 seed in the blue, in the championship chart. And so really we're just going to read this kind of almost as a sentence. The first place in the blue is going to go to the championship bracket, and they're going to be the 1 seed. So those seeds kind of become important. Typically, you would probably have all the champion, or everybody from the blue chart be a 1 seed, everybody from the red chart be a 2 seed, or so on. It so happens that the tournament that I'm working with and that I imported from did it differently on the other bracket. So it's a good example to show you the blue place, if the runner up there is going to go, of course, to the second chart, and then in this case they're going to be the 4 seed. So again, it's much more common for you to probably have all 1s, all 2s, all 3s, all 4s here. But just to make sure that we're able to build our bracket correctly, I'm going to continue with the way that this tournament that I'm importing from did it. Third place is going to the third bracket. They're going to be the 1 seed there. I'm going to keep adding these for every place on my chart. So I'm at 4th place. Of course, going to the 4th bracket. I think they're going to be 4 again. So it's going to go 1, 4, 1, 4. The 5th placer is going to the 5th chart. And there's really not a faster way to do this. They're going to be the 1 seed. And the 6th place, going to the 6th chart. And they're going to be the 4 seed. So again, planning is really important. 4, 1, 4, 1, 4. Okay, so that looks right. And then for every one of your charts, you're basically going to have these. So if I come back and I go to my Teams page to see my chart, and if I go to the green chart, you're going to notice, oh, I'm sorry, I need to go to bracket types. And then I go to my green chart and my flow map. You're going to see that it's going to look like something similar. But what these guys did is they used 1 and 4 and 2 and 3, and they kind of used their seeds that way. So that's the flow map, and that's a really critical piece. Without that, you would need to manually move teams from one chart to the next. This way, our system's going to do that for you, and that's really the whole idea of setting up a flow map. At this point, I'm going to copy over to testing, and we're going to work the rest of the way from there. So I'm going to go into import settings, and then come down to the bottom here and click copy to testing. And as you know, I'm just going to take a copy of whatever I have right now, and I'm going to put it over on our testing site so we can go over there. And again, that's obviously where we want you guys working and playing around and making sure if you're making mistakes that you're making them over there, and so you're ready to go on the day of the tournament. I will show you while that's copying over there. If I go to this actual tournament that I've been copying from, at this point, kind of the week of the event and while I'm practicing, if I go into users in the setup menu and statisticians, this is where I'd kind of be monitoring these statisticians. So the statisticians, of course, again, and we had the question a little bit earlier, once I sent these out, they got information on how to log in, get their teams in, and this last login is going to tell me when they were there last. I'd also probably want to look at their teams. I'll have my list of teams, and I can look at any of their particular lineups from there. So those are two things you want to go ahead and kind of take a look at. So I'm back over on the testing site now, and if I go ahead and take a look at my tournament, TWU, I log in, do a 102, and get in my tournament. The one thing I do need to do over on the testing site is I'm going to fill my weight classes and add random wrestlers. So if you look at these teams, you'll notice that there's no wrestlers in them. And so on your testing site, you very well may have to do this step too. On the live site, you won't have to. But I'm just going to come into any of these menus. I'm going to work from the registration now. If I click wrestlers, and I'm going to use this fill weight classes button, or this function. So if I click that and hit go, what this is going to do is it's going to add an unknown for each team and each weight class. And then what I can do on the testing site is I'm going to go over to the left menu, and in this operations, and again, for those of you that have been watching these courses who have worked a lot on the testing site, you know that operations is kind of going to be your way to add random wrestlers, to reset the tournament, and things like that. If you're expecting to see add random wrestlers in dual tournaments and in predefines, actually, for that matter, it's called fill unknowns. And so basically, just going to replace all unknown participants with random data, and that's exactly what we want to do. So now when I look back at my wrestlers, didn't click on it. If I look at my wrestler list now, you'll notice all of those unknowns are gone, and now we just have random wrestlers and random records and things like that. So this is a realistic way to kind of run our tournament. So we're kind of getting the night before the tournament. Of course, you're preparing, you're making sure your computers and printers are ready to go. When your teams get there, you're probably going to want to hand the coaches a team roster when they come in the door. And so I'm going to work from my registration menu and printing. And if I click team roster, I can select one team if I wanted, or I could do all the teams, print them all at the page break. And then I could print this out. Each of them would get their roster, and maybe they could correct their records or something like that. The other thing you might want to do, depending on how you run your weigh-ins, go into registration under printing, and I could also go to the weigh-in sheet. You can add any of these things. I cover this in the other course, but again, I can't tell you how often this document might come in handy for you. I can add an actual weight, and if I view that, it'll be there'll be this blank spot. If I do a print preview, it's a little easier to see. And so you'll notice that there's this blank spot over here. So maybe that's my actual weigh-in sheet where the team goes up and they can add the weigh-ins there, or their actual weights there. And then, of course, if I wanted to make roster changes, probably the easiest way in a team event is to go to the teams page, and let's say I go down and we say, okay, well, Menominee has a roster change, or they have to delete somebody or make a change. I just go to the wrestler and click on him, and I can make changes here if I needed to, changes to Raiders record or whatever the case might be. Could actually delete them out right here too. So again, roster changes are pretty easy to make if you need to. So at this point, weigh-ins are done. I've got all my rosters cleaned up, and I want to build my bracket. So of course I'm going to go into the bracketing. Actually, I'm just going to go to teams and show you that you can actually get there from anywhere. I'm sorry, I go to bracketing, and then I'm right. Go to teams there, and I'm going to, let's say I want to click on the blue bracket. So I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to use the blue bracket first, and I'm going to add teams to this chart. So again, we kind of have these 4 blank charts right now with no teams in it. And so I'm going to add teams to the chart. So again, maybe you had a seeding meeting, maybe there's some way that you're determining what pool that these teams are starting in. I'm just going to click on the ones I want. So maybe it would be Appleton East and the Blue Jays and so on. I can use the control key. Truth is, for what we're doing right now, I'm just going to pick the top 6 off the alphabet and put them in there. So that's going to be Appleton East through Clintonville. I click Finish and Add, and those teams get added. I would move to the white chart, which in my case, I just have to keep doing each of these. So I'm just going to kind of whip through them quickly. The next 6 is going to be Edgar through Marquette. So hold the Shift, type Add, and now these 6 teams got added to the white chart. If I go to green, Add Teams, this is going to be Medford through New London. Try to do this as quickly as I can for you. And then the red bracket, I'm going to add teams to chart, and that one is going to be Oconto Falls. Oop, too far. Through West Allis. And I click that. Add. So now I have all of these teams on a chart. I can seed the brackets from here. So again, it doesn't matter which bracket I'm working with. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on actually seeding this tournament, but if you had a seeding criteria or some way that you're going to seed them, you would just go through and use these drop downs. Let's say Stanley Boyd was supposed to be 1, and maybe Waterford is going to be 2, and the rest perhaps we're just going to draw in. In this case, I would just seed the top 2 teams, and this will look real similar to how you build brackets in open tournaments too. You can do them this way. And then I just click Build Bracket. And then that bracket gets built. I can view it here, and you'll see that those teams got placed down there. I had Stanley Boyd, if you look here, Stanley Boyd and Waterford were the 1 and 2 seeds, and in this case it really just meant I wanted them wrestling last. So you can seed those really any way you want. This is the red bracket. So I'm just going to come through. I'm not going to seed the other brackets. I'm just going to draw all the seeds, and I'll build them. Again, kind of random. You probably would have some sort of seeding that you'd want to do. I don't. In this particular case, I don't really care where they end up. And if you just wanted them random, this is what you do. You just click each bracket. You could draw all seeds. And as a matter of fact, because we haven't really selected any seeds, even if you didn't select draw all seeds, it would be just fine here. And I build all those brackets. And so now I have all my brackets built. So you, of course, would take more time, I'm sure, to make sure that the seeds were correct, but just build them all that way. I'd probably print my brackets now. So if I come into my operating menu and go to printing and brackets, of course, here is where I could print my brackets, and that printing function is the same as it is for other areas of track wrestling. And then I could also print bout sheets as well in that same way. Whether you're printing bout sheets here through track wrestling or using another method, you can go ahead and do that, or you wouldn't have to. So, but that's where it is. That's where you print bout sheets. Just come right here. Same kind of a situation. You could actually print a round at a time, or even a bout at a time, because now we have those bouts created. And then at this point, we're ready to wrestle. We'd enter the bouts, go to operating and bout entry. So again, we're working kind of from this operating menu because we're in the middle of our tournament. But if I go to bout entry, all I want to do here is just select a chart. So let's say that I have my blue chart. I bring this up, and you'll see that I have all of my weight classes here. If we were starting at, say, 132, I could switch that, and now it just brings 132 to the top. And I would select 132, and go through and select my winner, or select my participants. Maybe if guys are bumping around, I could move them around. That's easy to do. Pick my winner. Maybe that was a fall in, I don't know, 24 seconds. If it was a regular decision, of course, I would put that in. And then now that gets updated. I can correct my errors as well by doing the same thing. Let's say that wasn't actually a pin. Maybe it was just a major decision, and I think was this guy the winner. Yeah, so maybe it was not, I don't know, 8-0. I could save that and make changes that way. So from the bout entry, you can make your error corrections as well. And you would just continue on actually and just click the next bout. go through and select your winner and go from there. In our case, for me, I just want to show you kind of how you can quickly add a bunch of match results in dual tournaments. I would come back over into operations again. We kind of talked about this operations on the testing site. If I go here again, we used fill unknowns before. Obviously, reset tournament is kind of what it sounds like. Just as a point, maybe I'll show you. If I reset the tournament, you don't have to be afraid of this because you can select, whichever items you want to select. But in my case, I want to enter bouts. I'm going to use the max bout number of 15 for this bracket. And if I go enter bouts, oh, I forgot to select the blue bracket. So if I go blue, enter those. Now, if I do the same thing for the other, so if I went to this bracket, so if I go to bracket now and I go look at the blue, you obviously know what this is going to look like, but you'll notice that all the matches got entered. Now I have 1st through 6th in here. And if I went to any one of these duels, it's got all of this random data in there, which is pretty handy. You can kind of quickly run your mock tournament that way. But I'm going to come over back into the left menu and click operations. I'm going to enter the bouts, and I'm going to do the 4 pools. I did blue, now I'm going to do white, and I'm going to do the first 15, which is all of them. And I really want to show you how the flow map is going to work. So I'm going to go to green, I have 15 there again, and I'm just kind of simulating that first, I guess, phase of the tournament that we're running. So at this point now, all of my pools are done. And now we want to see how those look. So if I go to, I can go to any of these pages, but let's just say I want to take a look at my championship bracket. You'll notice that now in my championship bracket, these teams automatically got moved there. So here's my 4 first placers. If I look at the bracket, without me moving and adding any teams to that next bracket, Clintonville obviously was the champion, so was Lodi, Menominee Falls, and Waterford. So they got moved to that bracket, and the same would be the case for any of your other brackets. And that's really how the flow map works. So if you have a kind of a complex setup like this tournament does, flow map is really, it takes a few minutes to set up in the beginning, but once you got it going, then the tournament just kind of runs itself, and the brackets get updated that way. So a couple other things before I open up the mics again for questions. In the setup menu and the team scoring, you can make changes to your team points here if you needed to make adjustments there. Sometimes people like to do that. They put different values for those. That's just fine. If I go to printing, forgot where I was there. If I go to operating, if I go to printing, there's a few kind of interesting and handy items here that you can use. And this will be a pretty good example because we're like halfway, or maybe more than halfway through the tournament, but we're quite a ways through the tournament. If I go to tournament results, this brings up this page, and this is going to show us, you'll notice the championship bracket, there's no matches that have been wrestled, so these aren't. But if I go to my pools and scroll down, you'll see that the red pool, it'll show the places, and it actually shows all of the dual results. So sometimes that comes in handy. I don't know if maybe you'd hand that to fans, but certainly if you need to go back and see results, that's a really good place to do that from. A couple other items from this printing menu. The results by team. This is pretty handy as well. I can select any team. Let's say it's Bayport. And when I look at Bayport, it's going to show me round by round what those dual meets look like. Each of the individual matches and the winners, of course. And then here is where the team score is. And then also 2 more things in operating and printing. Results by weight class. This one actually is used probably most often when you're looking for like outstanding wrestlers and wrestlers that want undefeated and things like that. So I can go to like 106, and if I just update that one, it's going to show me the record of everybody from like, I guess, best to worst. And this is what all the records were for results at 106. This is including all matches in the record. Some of you might have a rule that says it's only at that weight class. I can switch that, and now this is going to update too. In our example, because it's in the test tournament, these wrestlers don't get bumped around, but you would see this change, and maybe this guy only had 3 or 4 of the matches, and maybe he wrestled up in the other one. So that's results by weight class, and that's a pretty handy thing that you might be able to use. And then also the other thing here is if I go to printing and then tie breaking summaries, we didn't talk a lot about tie breaking in the criteria here. Excuse me. We covered it in the other class, but basically it's going to break those ties and dual meets at end and ties. And if I wanted to go back and see how those were computed, I can click any of these. And if I submit that, this brings up whatever dual I just picked, and this happened to be Badger versus Brookfield East. The dual wins, that just means that they won the duel. But then this is the criteria in order, I guess from top to bottom. Nobody had penalties of any. It would be the next criteria, then it went to activity points, and so that would be like a 26-26. Again, if that were tied, which that's probably why we'd be looking at it, it would go back to match wins, and this is actually not a bad example, but if this were tied, it would go down, and then we'd actually come here to this one pin default forfeit or DQ, and that would be our tiebreaker. So again, when you get to those situations where it's coming down to a tie and you need to quickly find out who the winner of that duel would be, that's where you'd find it. If you did need to make changes to that, as long as you're talking about it, in this left menu, and I think it's in the setup menu too. Yeah, in the setup menu as well. If I go to tie breaking, it's going to be the dual meet tiebreakers, and these are the items that are in there. These are defaulted in based on the NFHS, but if you wanted to go ahead and make changes to that, you certainly could. So that's the basics of this Dual Tournaments 102. Again, the main focus was on multiple charts in a tournament, but of course we covered a few of those other things that come with it along the way. I'm going to open the mics back up. Before I do, I just want to thank everybody again for joining us in the course. We're in the process of trying to update our schedule, so what you see on our schedule right now is not a complete list. We will be offering those throughout the winter as well. We're just trying to get a handle on when the best times for us to do those is. So be sure to take a look at that schedule as well. This video is going to be archived just like the other ones are, and so if you go to the Track Wrestling page or the Track Wrestling University page from our homepage, you're going to see all those videos archived there too. So, and then of course if you have questions during the day or something like that, or even at night, feel free to use our ticket system, as I know many of you do. So I'm going to open the mics back up now. So the mics are back up. You probably hear the noise in the background there, but again, thanks everybody for coming. If you need to go, feel free, click out, just feel free to head out. If you have questions, I am here to answer them.
Shane, what are your hours of operation out there at track?
Sure. We're Central Time, and we are on the phones and answering tickets from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. And if you ask my wife, it's much longer, but don't tell anybody. 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. is basically when we're around. So if it's weekends, if there's tournaments running, we try and be there as often as much as we can. So.
You know who's on tonight? I spoke with Garrett. Really didn't have a couple of things. Sort of a grade.
Yep. So Garrett is on right now as I'm teaching. So Garrett's on basically at night. I'm on during the days right now, but pretty soon we'll be kind of double and triple staffed as we head through the season. So. Does that help?
It does. There were a couple of questions unrelated to this that I needed to answer, and I put in a ticket, so maybe Justin will respond to that tomorrow or something.
Okay. Otherwise, yeah, I can take a look at those when we're done here too. So. Any other questions, things that came up along the way?
Hey Shane.
Yeah.
On the tie breaking. Where was that sheet that shows you how the tie was broken?
Breakdown, yeah. So that's in operate. It's in the print menu, so you could find it over in the print documents too. But the easy way to get to it is in the operating, printing, and then tie breaking summaries right here. And then when you go there, summaries. Yep. And then you'll just select whatever duel it is. And you just pick any of the duels and you submit it, and then that'll come up based on everything. Of course, it's based on whatever was entered in. So.
Okay.
if you run it electronically, obviously all that information is going to be there.
Yeah, I had one. I didn't know how to get to it.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We did it manually. It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, that's pretty handy, especially and everybody wants to know right away, and it's kind of the heat of the battle. So it's a good place to go. On the controllers too, Paul, I can talk to you sometime too, because you can find that stuff there too. But that's probably for another day. But yep, operating,
Okay.
printing, and tie-breaking summaries right there.
All right. Putting the starting weights on the charts. Is there a way to do that? Or is that a manual thing?
I'm not sure what you mean, like to have it printed on there?
Yeah.
You would, you'd have to add HTML for that. There's not really an automated way to do that.
Yeah, okay. We did that for the junior women's schools, but it was a pain in the butt, but there's no way to get that done, huh?
No, you're saying that you just put it out there so people know when they look at the bracket kind of a thing?
Yeah, because some of the bigger ones, there was a lot of confusion. Like I think it was the junior duels this year, they had a lot of confusion as to what weight was starting, where,
sure.
Going from one shot to the other.
You could possibly do that as added HTML. But yeah, that'd probably be the only way to do it. That is the only way to do it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, with 30 teams, it's time consuming.
Sure, I understand. Yep. Yeah. No, sorry, I can't help you much with that one.
Okay. Another thing that came up with tiebreakers, and trying to think, I think it was on a line bracket. No, it wasn't on a line. Yeah, it was on a line bracket. We went down the stuff on the high school rule book according and matched it. And the first 8 were there, but the last 2 were not there. And
how long ago was that?
Columbus Day.
So just this year? I'll double check. I thought we had everything aligned with the rule book, but I'll check. If you want to look too, if you know the ones that we missed that are missing, if you want to send that in on a ticket, we'll definitely take a look. So if we're not aligned there, we make sure we certainly want to be.
Yeah, I think it was H and I, the last 2, because they were on another page. When you looked in the rule book, you had to flip the page to see them, and they didn't show up on your tie-breaking.
Okay. All right. I'll take a look at that. Maybe shoot in a ticket to have us remember to take a look, though. Okay.
Yeah, one of the other things that he mentioned is that forfeits don't count for tie-breaking.
Okay.
That's a new rule, and I don't
okay.
like I say, I didn't go through the whole thing. I don't know how it's set up.
Okay. Maybe tomorrow or something, Paul, when we don't have all the other folks on the line, you and I could probably talk about that. Does that sound okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions out there, folks? Stuff that's come up, or?
Hey, Justin, or Shane, if in let's say bracket number 1, team uses athlete X bracket, in the second round they use wrestler B or Y, does it default back to the original kind of roster, or do you have to change that every round if they were switching every other meeting?
Yeah, it's going to be, so that's kind of a good question. So if we go to one of these dual meets, so if I go to, I don't know, I guess I could just let's go to the championship. And let's say that we're going to, I just got to get to this page here. So if I go to where we're going to score our duel, I think what you're asking is, when you bring this up, is it always the same guy defaulted at a weight?
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be the first wrestler listed on the roster. So I guess probably by, if there's 2 wrestlers, it's going to be alphabetical there. So this is the entire roster. And this probably isn't a great example because there's only 1 wrestler per weight, because I just added them quickly.
Well, you went through that in Dual Tournaments 101, and I was just curious if setting that it went back to the next
it'll
match,
be,
or if the wrestler
Yeah, your score should look each time because it probably is going to go back. I don't know that for sure, but I'm almost positive it's going to go back to the first one that's listed. So it's just something you want to make sure your scores are, just basically make sure you got the right two guys in the weight. So. Any other questions? Anybody else with anything they need answered tonight?
No.
Okay. Well, if that is the case, if there's something you think of, before we kind of sign up here, just again, do you want to joining us? We know it's just, quite a bit of time involved that some of you are putting in, and we do appreciate it. Watch for the video. I should email that out, the link for it tomorrow, kind of hopefully early morning, if not mid-morning. And you can always go back and take a look at that too. So, and again, as always, let us know, call in, send tickets if you have questions, and we are always here to help. So, if nobody has anything, I guess I'll probably stop the recording and then shut the session down. And again, thanks a lot for everybody tonight for joining.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Shane.
You're welcome,
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah, have a great night.